awsini, give me some advice. And we know that when a companion would go to the Prophet ﷺ and say, give me advice, it would usually be a sentence or two that you could live by for the rest of your life. And it was something that especially applied to the person in front of him, but not exclusively to the person in front of him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he said, awsini. He said, give me some advice. فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم أوصيك أن تستحي من الله عز وجل كما تستحي من الرجل الصالح. أوصيك, I advise you to be shy of Allah the way that you would be shy of a righteous person. I advise you to be shy of Allah the way you would be shy of a righteous person. Now obviously, the idea of being watched in and of itself, if someone is looking at you, there are certain things that you would not be able to do, no matter what the status of that person is. If that person is wicked, if that person is righteous, if that person is someone you care about, even a complete stranger has some bearing on your actions if they're watching you. That's why you don't do certain things in public, right? Because you naturally feel a sense of shame in the sight of complete strangers. But the Prophet ﷺ did not stop there, because we know that evil people can find complete shamelessness in the presence of other shameless people. And even people that are at a low can find themselves no longer caring, especially when those that are looking at them are people of a similar standard. But how do you act when someone who is righteous is around you? You know, I'm not even righteous, and some of you apologize when your ringtone goes off. Okay, or when, I'm listening to something, or no, we have to stop talking in a certain way, and I am who I am, right? And you might see your uncle, or your father, or your mother, or a parent, or someone that you deem to be from the religious class, just from the observable part, and Allah knows our hearts. But immediately, when that person comes into your presence, you automatically feel like you have to watch everything that you say, and you almost feel like you might even have to apologize, right? Oh, I'm not trying to backbite here. Oh, wait, excuse me, I didn't mean to say that way. Because something happens to us in the presence of a righteous person, or someone we think is righteous, because only Allah knows who's righteous and not. But the Prophet ﷺ is saying, be shy of Allah the way you would be shy in the presence of a righteous man, and of course, even more. But the Prophet ﷺ is giving you something to measure yourself by. Now, subhanAllah, if you just took that advice and you started to think about the way that you consider the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon you at all times, the temporary states that we enter into that are to make us hyper aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are meant to do so that we realize that He is always watching us, whether we're fasting or not, whether we're sinning or doing good deeds, whether we are in complete privacy or completely in front of the public. Allah is always watching us. Hence, the ulama mentioned, the scholars mentioned, there is no greater protection and there is no greater motivation in the life of a believer than connecting themselves deeply to the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even Jannah and Nar, even paradise and hellfire, have a consequential sense to them. And yes, the Sahaba were motivated by the fear of hellfire. And they were motivated by their desire for Jannah. But the greatest reward in Jannah to them was getting to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And their greatest fear of the punishment of the fire was being completely disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was personal. Because knowing that Allah is watching you at all times allows you to be connected no matter what your state of being is, no matter how incentivized the particular moment is. A man went to Wahib ibn Ward, rahimahullah, one of the Salaf, and he said to him, give me advice. He said, اتق الله أن يكون الله أهون الناظرين إليك. Be mindful of Allah, fear Allah, that Allah become reduced to the lowest of your observers. This is a powerful sentiment, because the Prophet ﷺ is saying, consider Allah's sight upon you like the sight of the most righteous person that you know.